easy scene. Now, the question is, how the heck am I going to do that on the test, of course? Well, when I ask questions about any of this stuff on a test, it's my obligation to make it be visible enough so that you can see it without having to touch it. During that lab test, you don't get to touch anything. And I'll nag you about that a little bit. So if I'm poking pins in things, which is kind of what I do, I'll have to do that in a way that allows you to see this kink. So if I got the pin poked in here, for example, you would hopefully be able to see that it comes before that kink. If I want you to identify the ilium, I'm going to stretch this out pretty good on the table and then poke the pin over in some area of it that looks like, you know, the first third. So you kind of want to watch for that orientation. But if I've got it kind of set so that you can see this kink, and I got the pin over here someplace, you're going to know that that's a duodenum that I want. The duodenum has a pile of functions for it, and I don't think I'll give that all to you now. I'll save that for lecture. But there's 6 or 7 again. But I wanted you to see the mesentery and kind of get a sense of that. One other thing, where pins are concerned, I can poke pins anywhere I want to and ask different questions about that same spot. If I do this sort of thing, I might ask a question like, what's the name of the first layer the pin passes through when it gets inserted?
Visceral.
And that would be the visceral peritoneum, yeah. If I ask for the second, I wouldn't on this kind of a thing or any of the intestine really. If I ask for the second layer, you might just say large intestine, and that would be adequate. Or colon, which would be perhaps better. It's tricky to identify that pancreas too with a pin, but I can do it. But again, I have to do it so that you can see it. And during that lab test, if there is any doubt about where the pin is going through, don't mess around with it, because you may dislodge it or you may change some configuration that will cause you to get the wrong answer no matter how hard you try. So if the pin isn't sort of in your face obvious, let me know, because I'll be cruising all around trying to make sure that everything stays the way it's supposed to. But anyway, right now I got the pin poked into the pancreas. It is. And the way I've got it poked, this is not a question I would ask, but I could. You know, what's the first layer?
Visceral peritoneum.
Yeah, visceral peritoneum. Second layer?
Pancreas.
Pancreas. Third layer? Careful now.
Bones.
Does it go out the other side?
Yeah. Yeah, the pancreas is real thin. So what's the third layer the pin has gone through?
The visceral.
Visceral peritoneum again, because it's around both sides. See? What's the third layer? Yeah, that'd be tricky, but you know Thompson.
What's it going into?
Yeah, what's the third? Well, 1, 2, 3. What's the fourth layer? The liver. The liver. Yeah, that'd be a trap question. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah.
I might add that. Yeah, so be prepared for that kind of thing. The reason I like that kind of questioning is because it forces you to do the one thing that's most valuable about anatomy. It forces you to think in 3 dimensions. You have to be able to count in your mind what's being hidden by that. And so, what do you know? It's not particularly challenging once you figure out the gig, but because then you sort of do that. But still, in all, it's for rookies it might be. All right, off on the side over here is the spleen, which looks deceptively similar to the liver. Function of the spleen, I guess I've already given you that once before, but for the sake of a lab test, let's just identify the spleen as a place that recycles red blood cells. It has much to do with the immune system and some other things, but recycling red cells is probably adequate for this kind of thing for now. And then if I roll this yet farther, you're going to be able to see one of the kidneys. It's on this, this part of the kidney shows up pretty well.
And that's under the spleen?
Well, the left side is, yeah. The right side doesn't under a spleen. There's a little blob of fat on the top of the kidney, on the anterior end of the kidney, and inside that fat is the adrenal gland. And that's another one I can do. I can poke the pin in that fat and ask you what's there, and if you're not thinking again sort of three-dimensionally, you might be inclined to think fat. But no, in that particular spot, it's the adrenal gland I'm after.